So let's talk about Allen Iverson for a second. So when it came to Allen Iverson, at one point he actually threatened a referee.
Yes.
Tell me about that situation.
Iverson had some history with Steve Javie, and they had some issues going back and forth. The last couple games he had officiated, and the last game, Iverson had threatened Javie that he was going to kill him. And, we as an officiating staff felt that Iverson should have been suspended. They didn't suspend him. They just fined him. So I had the next game that he was playing in, and the three of us, when we officiated that game, came to the conclusion that we were going to kind of stick it to him by calling palming violations on him, something that he did every night and was let go. So we went out and each of us had called a palming violation on him that night. And, he was smart enough that he got the message, and he came up to me during a free throw and asked me how long it was going to last for. He kind of knew he was going to, have some issues moving forward. And I told him I had no idea what he was talking about and kind of looked at him and laughed, and he laughed, and he just shook his head like, yeah, right. He was smart enough to know what was going on.
Well, right. He got fined $25,000, but you you and the other refs felt that he should have been suspended.
Right.
Which he was not, because at the time, I guess he was a superstar player
right.
in the NBA, and they guess they didn't want to suspend him. Palming, is that something that's really called during games very often?
No, it's not. It can be, and it's clearly done, but it's something that, you let go because it's a exciting crossover move that a lot of the guys use, but it is a violation, and you can call it if you want. And if you have a guy that's been a pain in the ass to you and you want to stick it to him, you can call it. But, most of the time it's let go. And that night we decided that we were going to stick it to him and call it.
Well, right. On top of all the palming fouls, you were letting other players foul him, and you weren't calling it on them.
Right. When he would go to the basket, there were times when, he would get nudged, and you would usually call a foul even if the basket went in, but we were letting all that little stuff go and kind of letting him get roughed up a little bit.
Well, I guess at one point, one of the NBA supervisors talked to you and said that they felt that Iverson got the message.
Yeah, he came in at halftime kind of laughing a little bit, and he goes, yeah, I can assure you he's getting the message.
Can you say who that was?
Yeah, that was Jim Wishmeyer, a guy that lived in Denver who was a group supervisor for the NBA. And, he kind of came in laughing at halftime. He knew what we were doing, and it was something that, he felt was kind of funny.
Well, right, because Iverson lost that particular game, and you bet against him, and you won your bet.
Correct.
So that was an example of you actually having bad calls, which resulted in you winning a bet that you placed against a game that you actually were officiating in.
Right.
Okay. Was that the only time you did that?
That we kind of stuck it to a player as a crew. There was other times where, we went out in games and we bet who would give Rasheed Wallace a technical foul the quickest, or, another player that was giving us a hard time. So, I guess you can consider that, a time where I went out on the floor with a pre-notion to do something.
I mean, when it came to betting on games, did you base it mostly on the relationship between the refs and certain players, or were other things more important than that?
I think that was a major thing that was involved, and also, what the league wanted called, and there'd be a morning meeting at 11 a.m. before every game, and there were certain things that they wanted you to crack down on, and I would take that and, consider who was in the game and who they wanted those things cracked down on, and know that it was going to put a team at a disadvantage. So I would also take that into effect.